Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Sonny here, and today we are diving into n8n, one of the most underrated automation tools on the planet. Now, if you've never used n8n before, think Zapier, Make.com, or IFTTT, but with way more power, way more flexibility. And the crazy part, I'm going to show you how you can effectively run the entire thing for free, which means you can customize it and use it however much you want. You can connect 500 plus different apps to it. You can honestly create entire backend-like systems without coding a single line. This means you want more workflows, more triggers, and you want to use everything essentially without limits. And that's where most people get stuck, because maybe they don't want to pay every single month. And that's exactly where today's sponsor, Hostinger, comes in to save the day. You literally get one-click n8n installation on your own private VPS server. And you're probably wondering, well, what does that actually mean? That means you'll get unlimited workflows, unlimited concurrent executions, queue mode, community nodes. You even get an AI assistant powered by MCP in case you get stuck. And the best part, Hostinger have a Black Friday sale on right now. So you get 67% off n8n self-hosting. And if you use my code Sonny at checkout, you'll get an additional extra 10% off on top of that. Today I'm going to show you with zero code how you can go ahead and build a multi-agentic workload on your own VPS server that gets triggered from a Telegram chat. This is going to allow us to have a digital assistant that we can message at any time. It has access to our calendars. It can go ahead and even fetch us the latest news in the tech space. And that's just touching the surface. I'm going to teach you how you can do so much more. So without further ado, let's jump straight into this. So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and click on claim deal right here. Now, we want to get set up with KVM2. Now, VPS just simply stands for a virtual private server. So it means a server up in the cloud somewhere that Hostinger holds for us. Now, here you can see KVM2 is pretty much going to do everything we need. We're going to go ahead and choose that. Now, once that's done, what I want you to do is go over to have a coupon code, and you want to type in code Sonny, click on apply, and you will get an additional 10% off that price. Now, I would recommend with this sort of flow, you can see here, you can go ahead and do 12 months, 24 months. In my opinion, really it's up to you, but this is going to be cheaper, way cheaper than working with n8n directly from their website. So it's actually a steal. So I went with a 24-month plan, and it works out to be approximately around $5 a month to have unlimited workflows, which is absolutely awesome. So next up, you want to go down here, and where it says server location, I highly recommend you go with the United States. So I'm going to go ahead and select Boston, and then you've got the operating system, and here you can see we've got n8n select. Now you can do so much. We're going to obviously use the one-click setup with n8n. Once you're done, you want to go ahead and click on continue. Now you're going to see the dashboard. So to go ahead and get started, we're going to click on setup on the VPS server. Then you're going to have to select a server location. I highly recommend you select America as it plays well with OpenAI. Then we need to select the operating system. Head over to applications, scroll down, and with a single click, we can install n8n. Then we need to set a secure password. Don't forget this, we're going to need it later. And if you like, you can enable the malware scanner for free. Hostinger will then go ahead and set up the VPS. And once it's done, we can go ahead and click on manage app. You can also click this from the dashboard. And then we simply need to create an n8n account, answer a couple of questions. Next is the important part. We want to pop our email in and click send me a free license key. This will allow you to get all of the paid features on your self-hosted VPS instance for free. You simply take that key, go to the settings and activate. And now you've got the registered community edition and all the paid features for free. So once you've gone ahead and signed up, you'll land yourself at the Hostinger dashboard. And as you can see, we've got an overview here. We've got the server, which is KVM2. It's running our instance of n8n. And we can go ahead and jump straight into this by simply clicking on manage app. Now this is really cool because our instance of n8n is now running on our own private server. What I would recommend you do before we get started is you click on credentials and you can create your credentials. So what you want to do here, for example, you click on credential and let's just go ahead and say we want OpenAI, right? Go ahead and click on continue, and you can simply pop your API key in here, and you only need to fill out the ones with the asterisks. Now you can see I've done it for a bunch of accounts. The ones that we're going to need today are Telegram, OpenAI, and also Google Calendar. Now I'm not going to run through each of these. There are so many tutorials out there. If you will simply click into it, you can actually see right here, we have the open docs over there. They've got some awesome documentation, which step by step will show you how to get things running the way you need it. Back into workflows. First step, we want to go ahead and click on create workflow. So now we've got our clean workflow board. We can actually go ahead and name it. So I'm going to call this one n8n YouTube Telegram Assistant, right? And the first step that we want to go ahead and do is add the first step. Now, this is our trigger. What triggers off the n8n to run in the first place, right? So we can actually do it a bunch of ways. We can have a trigger manually. We can actually have an on chat message, which pops up a nice little chat. We pop up this little chat here. I can actually go ahead and say, for example, hi. And as you can see, it sends the message through. And obviously we haven't got anything connected here. So if I was just to do a very simple workflow, if I did, for example, AI agent, okay? And then you can see we've actually got a few options. Don't worry about this for now. I'll explain everything in a sec. But just here, what we do is where we've got chat model, we click on that. I've already connected my OpenAI account, and then I can select a model. So in this case, 4.1. Let's go ahead and let's say okay, and let's give it a chat. Right, so let's go ahead and say hi there. And now you'll see it will run through and it will communicate. And then the output is, hello, how can I assist you today? So as you can see, now we've got a full first workflow running. That's pretty awesome. It is local, as you can see over here. But we want to obviously do something more cool than that, right? So in this build, to make life a little bit easier, I'm going to go ahead and actually name our agents with their own little quirky names. So it's a bit more easier to resonate with what they're doing. The first agent in our workflow is going to be called a classification agent. Now, this is more of a pattern about how you can build agents. There's so many cool ways to build different agent workflows. I want to get to a point where we effectively have our final state. This is going to be the final state that we want to get to, where we have a classification agent with a OpenAI chat model. If you click into it, you can see we can actually have different agents using different models or different points in the workflow. And then we have a switch. So basically, if I asked it a question and I said, for example, what's in my calendar today? This switch will determine, is it a scheduling question? Is it a news related question? Or is it a general question? And then that will determine which agent it gets directed to via the switch. So then we either go to the scheduling agent, where we've got Susie, we've got Bob and Adrian inside the news agents, and then we got the general information, which is Elon, okay? And then finally, all the outputs would end up routing to send us a response on Telegram. Let's get to it. Let's start building that. So heading back over to our build, this one right here. We want to go ahead and start things off with our first agent, which is our classification agent. Okay. So let's go ahead and call this one the classification agent. And let's give this one a name. Let's just call this one Sarah. Okay. So Sarah is our classification agent. And that way it kind of, I find it sticks when we help things out like that, right? So we've got Sarah as our classification agent. And then the main thing here you need to understand is the source for the prompt. So you'll get fairly familiar with this fairly quickly. They have a very nice UI. And you've got the prompt, which is the user message. But for now, we'll leave it on connected chat trigger node. Now, the chat model here is using GPT-4 mini. We can actually change that. So in this case, I believe 5 nano is more cheaper than 4.1 mini. It might be wrong, but in this case, we're going to switch it to that. And then over here, we actually want to go ahead and have a simple memory. Okay, so simple memory. And what this will do is based on the session ID, the chat will have the understanding of what you've said to it before, right? So provided that the session ID remains consistent between your chats with the AI or kind of our workflow, it will know what we're talking about and it will have a context of the previous chat context, right? So let's go ahead and actually, we want to remove this one. I want to do something more cool than this. Let's go ahead and do an ad, and then let's go ahead and do Telegram. So I've already connected Telegram. So we're actually going to add in a trigger. So here we're going to have on message. So you see triggers on edit message or on message. We're going to go ahead and add a new trigger. I've already connected my Telegram account, and then you can see trigger on message. And here you can see a bunch of different ones. We want to have it on trigger on message, which is a trigger on new incoming message of any kind. And the way that Telegram works is we have a bot, right? Now, when you set up your Telegram account, if you go to create new credentials, click on open docs, it will guide you through how you can get your own bot. Now, firstly, you just need to create a Telegram account. It's for free. You get an API bot access token. But the main thing here is you have to start a chat with something called the bot father. Very interesting how it works. And then you do a /new bot to create a new bot. And basically you follow the steps. It's actually crazy simple. It's basically a chat interface where we go ahead and type in new bot. It says, all right, new bot. We give it a name. We try, different names and so forth. Then it'll give us an access token. I blurred mine out because obviously that's sensitive. Now you can simply go and click on the name of your bot and you can start chatting away with it. So now we have our Telegram trigger. Let's go ahead and connect it to Sarah. And if things start getting messy, you can actually press this tidy up button right here, which is a nice little feature. Saves you a bit of hassle sometimes, right? So let's go ahead and give this a test. Now, how do we test this out? So what we want to do is we want to click on execute workflow. And then what it'll say is it'll wait for trigger event. So what I do here is I simply can go ahead and let me just make this a bit smaller so you can understand and see, is I can just trigger it. What we want to do is we want to type in, for example, hi there. And as you can see, it showed, and we have an error. Now, what is the error here? We want to click on open node. And you can see, it doesn't know what the session ID is because it doesn't get the session ID anymore from the chat that we were doing before. So what we want to do here is we just simply want to go into define below and we need to give it a session ID key. Here you can see this is my chat ID and that is consistent every time. So I'm going to use that. And you see what I did there? I made sure I was in the schema view. I went to ID and I just dragged and dropped it into this field, and see how it changed from a fixed field to an expression field. And honestly, in n8n, expressions are everything. So get used to using them. We can close that error now. We can stop the workflow and then we can execute workflow again. It'll wait for another trigger. I can say hi there. And now let's see if Sarah, another error. Okay, so we want to click into this, and as you can see, chat input, because previously the way we were doing it is it was waiting for that chat trigger node, which was built into n8n. Now we need to, define it ourselves. So what we're going to do is we look inside of the input. You see here, we've got the input that ran, and then we want to see text. So we grab the text and we can pop it in there. Now we've fixed our issue. We can go back, execute the workflow and try one more time, say hello. And as you can see, it runs through. And then we should get a classification. Oh no, we haven't set that up yet. We should get a response in a second. So in this case, we go to logs. There you go. It says output. Hello, nice to meet you. How can I help today? So that's great for now. So we want to give Sarah some instructions so she knows what she's doing as opposed to just doing pretty much nothing right now, okay? What we want to do is we want to give her something called a system message. So we click in here, and as you can see, we've got this system message field. Now you can go ahead and write it inside of here. So I've gone ahead and done the following. I said, you are a classification agent. You must take the user's input, categorize it into one of the three following categories: scheduling, news, or general. You must return only one string, and it must be one of the categories above, a single word. You can do specific output formats and so forth, and you can customize the settings and all that stuff. But in this case, we're keeping it super straightforward. Now, we can run it again. So in this case, I can go ahead and you can do a lot of different things here. Actually, you can actually even rerun certain messages. So you can actually rerun things like so. But in this case, I want to show you the easiest way that you can replicate it. Okay. So in this case, let's just do it again. Type in hi there. And as you can see now, we should see from Sarah a simple output. And as you can see, it's a general question. Okay. Let's do another one. What's my calendar look like? And what you want to make sure is you click on execute workflow before. So that way it's listening for the trigger. We trigger it off, and then we've got the output scheduling. Hey, there we go. Okay, so you've just built your first classification agent. That's awesome. So now what we want to do is we want to have something called a switch. Okay, so the switch looks like this. So we type in switch. We go ahead and apply a switch. And as you can see now, we've got a few things over here. If you don't see these, chances are you just haven't connected the nodes together. So inside of our switch, we want to have three different outcomes. So for these three different outcomes, what we want to do is be checking the output. So here we've got the value. So we put that here and we say, is the value equal to, for example, scheduling? So we made sure that was one option. Add a second one, drag the output here, and we can say news. And then we have one last one, which is the output over here. And that one was general. And then what we can actually do is we can rename the outputs to make them a bit nicer to work with. So we can just say that this one is the scheduling output. This one is the news, or you can say it's a news question if you really want to. And then this one, we're just going to say general. So this is basically going to be how we determine where we want to send it afterwards. Right. So now you can see, look, we've got this nice switch, and then we've got these three different nodes now. Awesome. Scheduling, news, and general. The first most easiest one is the general node. So what we want to do is we're going to go ahead, and if you just press tab as well, you can actually get to this little screen on the right. AI agent. Let's go ahead and create a general node. Now this is going to be Elon. Okay, Elon is our general information bot, right? So in this case, this guy is just going to go ahead and give us any kind of response back if we ask for it. Now, in this case, what we want to do is connect to chat trigger node. No, we're going to do define below. And we want to, you see right here, it's not giving me options. That's because we haven't connected it. So general, we simply connect. And what you'll notice is it gets all of the previous context. So I can actually go back to the Telegram trigger, get the original text and pop that in the prompt, which is the user message. So now Elon's going to get that message and he can work on it, or you can give him, you can kind of think about it. But right now he hasn't got a brain. So we've got to give him a brain. So let's go down here. And obviously you can switch different models, but for now, let's stick with OpenAI. And then this is really determinant on how clever do you want Elon to be, right? We can make him like pretty clever, but basically giving him GPT-5 or something like that. But these are going to be more expensive, right? But in this case, let's just assume that when I do ask a general question, I want Elon to really think about that question, right? So in this case, maybe 5, but we can control the complexity of that model, which means we can control the cost of it. And that's very powerful. So Let's go back. And then in this case, I'm not going to rename these ones. I'm not too fussed. And we want to give Elon access to the memory as well, in case, he needs to check what have I said before or something like that, right? So in this case, we want to make sure we can define our own one. Let's go ahead and use our own ID. So this is the Telegram ID. And if you're wondering, what is that again? That is just this chat ID. So it'll always stay the same. And that'll be different for my bot than it is your bot. So there we have it. And then how do I send a message back to the user? That's going to be the most coolest part, right? So here we can type in Telegram, and then I want to do send message. So send a text message. And as you can see, we can connect our Telegram account, message, chat ID. Oh, okay. So we can go over here. We can pop in the from ID. That's perfect. And then we can pop in what text. You see, we haven't got the Elon's text or his output. So what we have to do is we have to execute. And sometimes you see if you execute here, it's not going to work because we have specific triggers and requirements. So what you can actually do is you can actually deactivate that one for now, execute the workflow, and then we can just say, hi there, which is a general question. It will go into the switch and hopefully comes to Elon because it's general. There we go. And now this will populate some data. In a moment, we should get an output. And there we have it. You see the line has gone green, which means it's now sending data through. So if we click this now, you see that, right? That's awesome. And it says, sorry for the earlier confusion. And that's because it knew that I had asked it before a bunch of times, hi, hi, hi. So it's thinking that it's a bit like, that it's basically just trying to respond to that. So what we can do here is the output is what we want to send to Telegram. Okay, so that way it sends us back a message. And then you've got a bunch of fields here, and then append n8n attribution is basically where it might, when it replies, we don't want it to say this is sent from n8n. Okay. So let's give that a chance and we can go ahead and do that as well. Just remember all of this data, you see how it's green right now? And if I was to click into any of the nodes, we have access to the previous data. Sometimes you might want to keep that. So what you can actually do is click on the first node and pin it with P. And then you can see this data is pinned for test executions. And that comes in really handy later on. But for now, we're just gonna, I just wanted you to know that you can do that. It's very handy. So let's execute the workflow. Hello. And then let's see. And as you can see, it's running through. Elon gets the message and now Elon's figuring out what to say back. And this is GPT-5, so obviously it will cost a bit more. You can see we also see the tool tokens. So this is quite cool here. So now you can see, oh, there we go. Hey, how can I help? If you want, I can check, plan your schedule, updraft messages, plan trips, to-dos, and so forth. Of course, Elon can't really do all of those things. So what we can do to make Elon a bit more realistic is give him a system message and say you're a helpful assistant, or you are a general question assistant. I don't know, the better you get with your prompts, the more it's going to be effective. Obviously I'm just not going to go into too much detail today, but your general question assistant, let's just say, for example, we can give it something like this. So you can answer a wide variety of questions. However, you cannot perform any actions, you don't have any tools, so simply answer the question without providing any false information. And we can even go ahead and, if you click on add options, you've got a bunch of other options here. One of them is which is enable streaming. Now that's not going to work for Telegram, but if you were having like a chat inside of the UI here, that would stream it and so forth. You can do a few cool things there. But in this instance, I think we're good. Okay, so Elon can now answer base questions. He can reply to us, and that's pretty good. You want to make sure you save at that point. And what I like to do here to make things a bit neater is basically go ahead and add in a note. So in this case, we can click this add sticky note, and then we can go ahead and simply go ahead and label this section and go ahead and say here, general information agent. Cool. And there we have it, guys. We have our general information agent down here. Let's just go ahead and minimize this a bit. And as you can see now, we've got the first bit of the workflow, the classification. And then if it's a general question, it comes down here to the general information agent. Now, let's do something more cool. Okay, right now, Sarah, she wants to send some information to scheduling a news sometime and nothing's happening. So let's do something a bit more nicer with that, right? So we want to go ahead and firstly do the scheduling agent, right? This is actually a really cool one, how it can interact with our Google Calendar, for example. So what we want to do is we want to click on scheduling and we're going to do AI agent. And then here we've got the source for the prompt will actually be the original message. So in this case, we can do the text like so. We're going to call this one, this is going to be Susie. Susie is our scheduling agent. Inside over here, we can pull her up over here. Okay. So once it goes over to Susie, we need to connect a few things. So for the chat model, again, I'm going to use OpenAI. And for this one, I'm going to use GPT-4o. Okay, so GPT-4o. And of course, these will use tokens, right? So you can even go ahead and optimize it, try it for yourself. Like I said, in the logs, it will show you the tokens that you're actually using. And I also want to mention as well here, add built-in tools. So each model that you actually end up calling, for example, GPT models have built-in tools like web search, file search, or code interpreter. Web search could have been a handy one actually for Elon. So even for Elon down here, we can go ahead, actually add in web search. Maybe now if he needs to go and search web, he can do that, okay? So that's quite handy. So next up, we want to go and add in the tools. So this one, we don't actually always need a memory either. Okay, so Susie, when something goes to her, I don't want her to actually go ahead and check the previous chat. I just want her to go ahead and check a bunch of the calendars and then do something interesting with it. So in this case, I want to go to Google Calendar. Now I've already connected my Google Calendar. I've connected to Papa Fam Calendar and Sonny's personal calendar myself. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Papa Fam Google Calendar and actually have both my calendars in this. I have Sonny.sangha@gmail.com and I have my team at papareact.com. So I'm going to use this to go ahead and get things working like I want. So in this case, I'm going to do team at papareact and this is going to be my team calendar. And then from here, the tool description, what does the tool do? We can let it set it automatically. We want to go ahead and actually first click on the event, right? And we want to give it the ability to get many events from our calendar. Now, what does that mean? Basically, if I said what's going on next week, you can now go ahead and let it basically go and grab things from next week and so forth. Then we've got a couple of handy things here. So we've got the return all, and we can actually either determine it ourselves or we can let the AI model determine that. So we're going to let the AI model determine that, and also the after and before dates of when to get the information. We're going to let AI determine all of these things. And that's really cool because now we don't have to effectively give it anything. We just let AI do its thing and we say, okay, you're going to be getting it from the team calendar. So we're going to say get, let's just say business events from calendar. And then that's great. And then what we can do is we can copy Command C and paste. And now we have the another one. So we can go ahead and say get personal events from calendar, right? Rename it. And this time I'm going to pull from Sonny.Sangha. I'm going to change it now to Sonny.Sangha. Keep everything else the same. So now, and then you see this one, I can simply connect the tool over to it. So now we've given it the ability to get business events and personal events from the calendars. And then we've got a couple more things that we can do with this. If we go back to Google Calendar, we're going to go ahead and actually say, we can go ahead and over here, and then we can actually say the calendar availability. This is really cool because if a time slot is available in the calendar, sometimes you might want to ask your assistant, am I free at 4 p.m. tomorrow, for example? In this case, we can go into the calendar, go into our team calendar, and then I can do AI to figure out the start and end time. And that is great. Okay. So we've got get availability in business calendar. Okay. Business calendar. And then I can do copy, paste, and I can do the same thing. And I can change this to get availability, personal calendar. And then here, I can change this to Sonny.Sangha, keep everything else relatively the same. So now what we can do is we can connect that tool over here. So we can connect the tool like so, and we can go ahead and now get availability from our business and our personal calendars. Awesome. But we're missing one thing. How does Susie go ahead and create new calendar events? So we're going to click on new tool again, Google Calendar. And then you can see we've got a bunch of tools there. We're going to add it to our calendar. We're going to go ahead and to the team calendar, change it to start. Oh no, sorry. Before we do that, go to the resource event, create, add an event to calendar. You can also give it delete and so forth. You can do a lot of stuff, but do this carefully, right? And do it very slowly so you can test it out because AI can also go ahead and delete a bunch of stuff, right? For reminders, we're going to say, okay, use the default ones. And a couple of things. If you don't do the next step, it won't actually give the calendar event the right title and description. So the first one is description. We're going to let AI determine it. And for the title of the event, it comes under summary. So these two are quite important fields, right? So once that's done, we've got the create an event in Google Calendar. So we're going to say create an event in business, Google Calendar, that's fine. And we're going to copy and paste it and do the same thing for personal, right? So we're going to say for personal, change this to my personal like so, and then everything else remains the same. Cool. So now everything is a bit, we're getting there nicely, but it's a little bit messy. So what I want to do is I'm just going to go ahead and add some sticky notes and I'll be right back. And that's better. We have our business tools, our personal tools, much nicer, right? We can move our model over there. And that's a lot easier just to figure out and understand what the hell's going on, okay? So after, of course, we send the Susie does her job and her scheduling job, we can actually connect it to the Telegram chat, and then that way we can get a response. And the final step is that we have to give Susie a system prompt so she knows what she is doing. Otherwise, effectively, she's just going to be guessing and it's not going to be consistent. So we can set a bunch of things here. You can see, but the main one is the system settings that I'm interested in. I'm going to drag that down and I'm going to pop in the following. You are a helpful assistant designated with scheduling and calendar tasks. You have the ability to read events in the calendars, create new events, and check availability. The calendars available to you are the following. So I've given it personal and business. Today's date is today. Right? And that's very important actually. So let me go into firstly expression mode. So you want to make sure this is an expression. This is really important. What I find with a lot of these workflows is that typically it's based on when the AI model was trained. So that'd be like 2023 or something like that. So these curly brackets basically allows us to have JavaScript. So in this case, if you write a $sign, you will be able to get access to some global state variables, one of which is today, which gives us the date and time. And then you can basically specify your date and time. I say always return times in GST. And that's important because basically I want it to figure out, is it a personal event or is it a work event, right? So in that case, put in the correct calendar and also make sure it's in the correct time zone. Otherwise, I'm going to be turning up to the appointment in the wrong time zone based on what the model's time zone was, right? So you can set that at the n8n level, but I find that this is a very good trick to do, okay? So now that we've done that, we've got everything looking pretty good. Let's give it a test. Okay, we're going to click on execute workflow. We're going to come back here now and I'm going to say, when is my next haircut? Because a lot of you guys are always asking me, Sonny, when do you get your haircuts or where do you get your haircuts? And as you can see right now, it reached this model. So in this case, it would have gone through our classifier and now it's over at the model and Susie done a bunch of stuff. And there you go. That is actually correct. So I have my next haircut on November 16, 2025 at 2:30 with my barber called Mo. That's awesome. Okay. So I actually went ahead and did that. And what I'm going to do is I've actually emptied out my calendar. So I'm only showing some things here. And then you've got my actual haircut, which is correct. It's 2:30, right? Go ahead and execute another example here. And let's try out the create now. So I'm going to say, I have a dentist appointment tomorrow at 2 p.m. Okay, and you see I can talk, I don't have to get the spelling right and everything. And I can just say, I have a dentist appointment tomorrow at 2 p.m. Make sure it's listening for the triggers. And now you can see if we give it a second, we should see in a moment at 2 p.m. There you go, guys. And there you go. It goes, your dentist appointment is scheduled for tomorrow at 2 p.m. You can view it on your calendar. And it even gave us a link. That's awesome. And notice how it even done a description. It was very simple, but dentist appointment is enough. And there you have it. That's awesome. That's great. But that already is pretty amazing that we can literally already at this point, we have a fully functional chatbot that can go ahead and access our calendars. It can go ahead and schedule things for us. It can check our availability. For example, here I say, am I available tomorrow at 3 p.m. And then we can go ahead and let that do its thing. Oh, that's not going to work. So sometimes if you send it and you click execute workflow, it will actually pick up the last event that we sent. So it can actually work still. And as you can see now, because we're still in the debugging state, it's inactive. You can see there you go. And boom, you are available tomorrow in both your personal and business calendars. Amazing. So in this case, if I go up here now, I want to show you, this is important because look, you can see the amount of tokens that you used and you can jump into all of the different calls and inspect exactly what was going on. This is really, really nice because you can see exactly what's going on, what inputs it decided to use. And we didn't remember, we told it can do that itself. And then what it decided to go ahead and send back to the user, in this case, my bot. Okay. So that's awesome. We're almost got our workflow already. The final one, which is the most challenging one, is going to be our news bot. So in this case, I'm going to prepare a few things. Now for the news bot, I have a mission in mind. I want to go ahead and basically scrape a couple of RSS feeds and I want to get a summarization of those RSS feeds. So we're going to have 2 agents here because we're starting to warm up things a bit more, right? So we're going to go here, click on AI. And I'm going to click on AI agent. And this one, we're going to call Bob. Bob is our news agent. Okay. So Bob is our news agent. And he's the one that's going to be responsible for grabbing RSS feeds and so forth. Okay. So what I'm going to give Bob is basically a user message here. So I'm going to change this one. We can get rid of this one. We're going to change this to a define below. And here I'm going to change this to an expression. We can make this full screen to make it a bit easier. And this is what I've effectively going to go ahead and do. So the Telegram trigger is where the text comes from. So in this case, if I just pulled it there, you'll see the same outcome comes in. So we've got the question itself. Then I've said, here is the RSS feeds that are available. And these are just some of my favorite RSS feeds for weekly newsletters. I use these typically a lot. And now you remember, you can actually set this up on like a cron job, get it to run itself, send you automatic messages every morning. You can do some really cool stuff here, but that in itself should be good for the expression. That's perfect. We have Bob's job has been pretty much clearly defined. Then we need to give Bob a chat model. So here we're going to click on OpenAI and let's go ahead and give him 4.0 for this, right? Now, I would recommend when you have tool calls, in which case we're going to have now, you don't want to be always using the cheaper models as such. It's definitely worth testing because as you implement more tools, you'll find that if you put a cheaper model, it won't run the tools as well. So this is very much a case of trial and error, test it, see how it performs, and then move forward from that, right? Now, I've already given Bob a couple of RSS feeds, and typically you might think, okay, now I have to go and add in individual RSS feeds and all that stuff. But what if we just give Bob a tool? Here we're going to say, okay, Bob, you have the ability to go ahead and read from RSS feeds. And then for the URL, we're going to let Bob decide that, because I've told him the ones that I want to get my data from. So that's pretty good. So we can pretty much go ahead and say, that's fine. Grab the RSS feeds. And then what we want to do is we want to send it to another agent. Okay. So once Bob has got all of the RSS feeds, I want another agent. Let's call it Adrian, right? So Adrian is going to be responsible for summarizing those RSS feeds. So in this case, Adrian is going to be our summarization agent. And we're going to go ahead and say for the prompt here, we're going to go and actually define. Now, again, this is going to have to come from Bob. Okay. So we don't actually have Bob's output there because we haven't ran Bob yet. But for the summarization model, we want to use something a bit more smart, because it could be a bit more tricky to figure out what's going on, or, if we want to get a nice summarization from this, right? So you can go ahead and again, experiment yourself. So I want to use GPT-5 here, for example. And more so the case here is just to showcase how we can have different models running in different places. You could even go ahead and actually change the model entirely. In fact, let's do that. Let's go to Anthropic. And I've set up an Anthropic account. Let's do Claude 4.5, right? So in this case, 4.5. And then we want to give Adrian a system prompt. Okay, so in this case, let's give Adrian a system prompt, summarize the news information in an easy to understand message for the user. Again, my system prompts here are very simple. The better the prompt for a system prompt, the better the output is going to be. Okay, so make sure you understand that. It's very, very important. Now for the memory, we're going to give it a memory because it could be useful here, that maybe it understands what I asked it in the previous messages. It could be relevant, for example. So we're going to use the from ID, which is our Telegram ID, as our session ID. And then that's all good. That's it. Yeah. And then we want to go ahead and direct it to the message over here. So this is our news bot. Okay. In this case, we can go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and add a sticker here to make it a little bit more simple. And I'll be back in 3, 2, 1. And boom, there we have it. Now it's testing time. Let's go ahead and give it a test. And just for my OCD, I'm going to bring that a little bit higher. That's right. Comment down below if you're the same. You like everything super neat. Before we test out the news agent, I want to do one thing. I want to actually add in an intermediary sort of message. So it's like, yep, just fetching the news for you, or let me check your calendar. So something a bit more sleek to the experience. So here in between, I can actually go here and I can type in, for example, Telegram, and I can actually say something like send a text message like here. Now, when, for example, for the calendar one, we want to go ahead and do something like this. So we can do a message, send message. For the chat ID, we can typically go here and we can see the chat ID like so. And then you can see I pulls through. And then for the text, we can do something like just checking your calendar, give me a sec. And what's really cool here is we can actually reply to a message itself as part of, like, when you swipe to reply, which looks really cool. And I'll show you exactly what that means. So here we've got the message ID. If I go ahead and grab that, we can simply move the message like so. So we've got the message ID. And now what will happen, if we've done it all correctly, it will say, if it ever goes to scheduling, it'll say, sure, let me check the calendar. Then Susie begins her work, which is really awesome. Now, everything shifted slightly to the side, which is interesting. So the final one that we want to do is we want to do one for the news agent as well. So we want to do Telegram. Let's add one here. So send a text message like so. Message, the chat ID. Let's go ahead and do the same thing. Chat ID, we can pop in here. And then for the text, we can do, again, something similar like fetching the news for you. And then at the bottom, we can go ahead and even here, we can reply to a thread ID or the message itself. So we're going to do the same thing with the message. So I want to reply to the message ID, which is super clean. Cool. Just like that, we now have the following. So it's moved because of that. Let's see. So let's give this a final run through, see if it works. Fingers crossed, right? So let's go over here. You can see I've tested it a few times. Just click on execute workflow. And you'll find yourself in this pattern of just going ahead and testing. Give me my Next.js news. And before I do, I'll show you over here. So I'm hit enter. Sarah classifies it. It goes through. They sent a message. Hey, just fetching that news for you. This message was sent automatically with an n8n. So while that's happening, I just want to go into here quickly. And we're going to go ahead and add the append n8n attribution, turn that off. So that's how you get rid of that little message. Adrian is now summarizing it. You can see Bob had access to the RSS feed. And let's see, does Bob send? Hey, there we go, guys. Bob sent us back a perfect Next.js update. And you can see they've given it inside of, they've done it in Markdown. We can basically tell Adrian that this should be formatted for Telegram. So in that case, Adrian won't do this again. But as you can see, that's great. So it tells us about lots of stuff. Great news, Next.js 16 has been released, right? So that's awesome, works for that. Let's try our scheduling agent. So let's go ahead and execute workflow. Say, am I free tomorrow at 7 p.m., okay? And now you can see, am I free tomorrow at 7 p.m.? Sarah reaches over. It says, just checking your calendars. I forgot to disable that one right there, but let's go ahead and do that in the meantime. And you can see you're not free tomorrow due to a business commitment. So I have something going on tomorrow. And if we go down here, append n8n, we can disable that. Just like that, guys, we have it. So if I was to pop this in again, now we won't see this message was sent automatically with n8n. Run that one more time. And as you can see, we just get this nice message back. And you can see it's replying to that message, right? Perfect. And you can see there it goes. It's working correctly, right? That is awesome, guys. You built your first multi-agent workflow and it's working awesomely. We've got Sarah, Bob, Adrian, Elon, Susie. Let me know down in the comments below who you would build or which agent you would build and how you could figure out some cool workflows to get things moving. I want to hear your ideas. We've built something cool here today. And the crazy part, we didn't write a single line of code. What I do like, however, side note, is that if you do want to add in any custom code, you can simply type in code. You can simply click on code and you've got the ability to code in JavaScript or Python. So you can have code blocks in the mix as well if you want to. Now, if we want to make this productionized and make it, work for us, we simply go ahead and click on inactive and we now becomes active. And now basically our n8n server is self-hosted on our own VPS server, thanks to the guys over at Hostinger. And now what we can do is we can chat to it at any time. So I no longer have to click execute workflow. I can even go out of this. So let's go ahead and give it a try. So here I have my calendar open. I'm going to go ahead and say, am I free tomorrow at 6 p.m. I have to take Kenji for a long walk, right? Let's see what it does. So now it will be check-in my 6 o'clock. And then if it's all free, it should add in Kenji, or it will just tell me, oh, there you go. It added in. You're free tomorrow at 6 p.m. I've scheduled the walk from 6 till 7. Enjoy your walk. And you can click view the event and it will go ahead and even take us to the Google Calendar event. And you can see right there, take Kenji for a long walk. Awesome. And there we have it, guys. You built your first multi-agentic workflow without writing a single line of code on your own VPS server. Absolutely incredibly powerful stuff. Like I said, you have unlimited, workflow calls. You have the queues. You have so many cool things that you can go ahead and take this. You can honestly take this to the absolute extremes. We use it a lot internally ourselves for lots of our business processes. We've got tons of automations all over the place. I'm curious to know if you want to see more videos just like this on the channel. Maybe we get into some really in-depth workflows that we might use over here at the Papa Fam. And of course, if you enjoyed this, then do us a solid favor. Make sure you smash that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification icon to not miss any future videos. And as always, guys, it's your boy Sonny. I hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you in the next one. Peace.